Hello and welcome back to Black American Lineage. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your likes. Thank you for your comments. Just thank you for all you do to support this channel. And today I'm going to talk about something that's very confusing in American history, and it's called the Bacon Rebellion. And what they say is because of this rebellion and the result of this rebellion, which happened in 1676 and 1677, this is when they began making a distinction between white indentured servants, black indentured servants, free blacks, enslaved people, and native people. Now, I'm going to give you a little background, and then I'm going to explain why I find this confusing. Bacon's Rebellion was an armed rebellion held by Virginia settlers, white people from England, that took place from 1676 to 1677. It was led by Nathaniel Bacon against colonial governor William Berkeley after Berkeley refused Bacon's request to drive all of the indigenous tribes out of Virginia. So Nathaniel Bacon wanted to drive all of the indigenous people out of Virginia. Thousands of Virginians from all classes, including those in indentured servitude and races, rose up in arms against Berkeley, chasing him from Jamestown and ultimately torching the settlement. See, this is confusing because Nathaniel Bacon was the one trying to drive all of the indigenous people out of Virginia. William Berkeley, who was the governor of Virginia at the time, was trying to broker peace with the indigenous people. So Nathaniel Bacon thought the solution was just for them to get a military and drive all of them out of Virginia and make way for other British settlers. Now, that's how come this is confusing to me, because what they're saying, and all of them say the same thing, that the indentured servants, white and black, the free blacks, and the enslaved blacks, plus the blacks who were in indentured servitude, and I don't know who they were, but anyway, they're saying that all of them fought on the side of Nathaniel Bacon, who was trying to drive the indigenous people out. So I don't see the indigenous people fighting on the side of somebody who's trying to drive them out of their territory. So what I see in this rebellion is two British men who want power. One of them has the power. William Berkeley has the power. Nathaniel Bacon wants the power. So these are two people struggling for power. And neither one of them was truly a friend of the indigenous people. One of them was trying to drive them out of the territory. So this went on for a few years, but this was a serious rebellion because it included people who represented the British Army, the settlers, who were the regular white people, the indentured servants, both black and white, free blacks, and the indigenous people. All of them were tied up in this fight. So the result was that Bacon's Rebellion was the first rebellion in the North American colonies in which the white people that were mad at the British government because they never did right about anybody, they joined together with the indentured servants, black and white, free blacks, enslaved blacks, and indigenous people. They all pulled together and fought the British government. And they say that Nathaniel Bacon was behind all of this, but I believe that these people did this on their own because Nathaniel Bacon was a part of the British government. So I think they're just trying to say that to make it look like he was the leader, but it doesn't seem that way when you read it because it doesn't make any sense. So what they had was this great big group of people fighting against the British government, and they burned Jamestown, Virginia to the ground. And the British government had to station troops in Virginia for years after that. And eventually it still led to the American Revolution because the British were in charge, and these people came to the colonies in the first place to get away from British control. So after all of these groups made this alliance, it disturbed the British government. It was more of them than it was of the British. And if they kept that alliance going, they would overtake the government. So the British realized they had to do something. They responded by hardening the racial caste of slavery in an attempt to divide the two races from subsequent uniting together to cause an uprising. So after this rebellion, they passed the Virginia Slave Codes of 1705. Now this is where it gets dicey because we know in Virginia they reclassified indigenous people and made them Negroes or black. So they made a bigger class of enslaved people. And I'm sure this happened over time. I'm sure they didn't do that overnight. It was a gradual process of reclassifying indigenous people into Negroes, as they called them. So as they reclassified the indigenous people and called them Negroes, what they did for the whites was to tell them, you have authority over all of these Negroes. You are better than they are. You're deserving of more rights and privileges than they are. You are over them. You are their master. So that's how they divided the races, because before then, they saw themselves as being the same because they were in the same economic situation for the most part. But after they gave the white people power, then those white people who had been fighting with them started fighting against them. It was a brilliant strategy. And that strategy is working to this day. We call it white supremacy, white privilege, whatever you want to call it. But it started way back then in the 1700s. I'm going to share another source. I believe this is AI. I believe this is the artificial intelligence source. And I don't know who's managing this. But it says, Bacon's Rebellion was a violent uprising in colonial Virginia in 1676 and 1677, led by landowner Nathaniel Bacon against Governor William Berkeley and the wealthy plantation owners. The rebels, who included black and white indentured servants and African slaves, burned Jamestown and fought with the Native Americans who were either attacked or blamed for frontier raids. Bacon died of dysentery, and the rebellion was crushed by Berkeley, who executed many of the participants. The rebellion was later seen as the first armed insurrection by American colonists against British authority and a precursor to the American Revolution. It also resulted in the intensification of African slavery and the social segregation of blacks and whites in Virginia. So this rebellion is a confusing rebellion in my mind because I do not believe they are properly identifying the players in this revolt. So anyway, this was the beginning of separating blacks and whites and establishing black people as the working class, slavery class of American workers. Looking back, it was just an excuse to enslave the people that they were calling Negroes. But after this, the colonial government realized they couldn't fight against all of these people. the indentured whites, indentured blacks, free blacks, enslaved blacks, and the indigenous people. But I'm going to put money on the fact that those indigenous people, the people that they are calling indigenous, were black. They look just like the free blacks, the enslaved, and the indentured servants that were black. They all looked alike, and it was a bunch of them. So they had to split them up. And that's what they did. And this is called the Bacon Rebellion. So anyway, y'all, let me know what you think about this, because there's a lot of trickery has gone on in America. A lot of trickery. And this is another one of them. And it'll take a while, but we'll get to the bottom of all of this. But anyway, let me know what you think about the video. And as always, have a great day.